Peace, family. Listen, if you want an extraordinary life, you have to be a little delusional. Because if you only believe what you currently see, you will only ever become what you already are. Listen, y'all, got an amazing video for y'all today. Why being delusional is required to create your reality. So we're going to be diving deep within this concept. So if you already feel like this is something that resonates with you, make sure to watch this video until the very end. Like, comment, subscribe, the whole thing. All right. So why being delusional is required to create your reality. All right, man, listen, success requires delusion, right? And, there's so many different people that we can reference. If you're somebody that studies other successful and people that have achieved a lot, you'll always notice that there's always some level of delusion and belief that they had within themselves that not necessarily a lot of other people had as well. Okay, so that's like the first step. Okay, it's like a lot of other people are not going to see things the way that you see them. Okay, and that's where the delusion starts. It's like you're going outside the norm of thinking. Okay, and that could be society, that could be family, that could be friends, that could be your environment overall. But a lot of the thoughts, ideas, and beliefs that they have may not be congruent with what you have that is ultimately in alignment or congruent with whatever it is that you want to accomplish. Okay. Now, what is delusion? All right. So if we were to look up delusion in the dictionary, we'll see that delusion, the definition of delusion says a false belief or judgment about external reality held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary, or a false belief, judgment, or perception. Okay. Now, a false belief, judgment, or perception, that is the definition of delusion, or a false belief or judgment about external reality held despite the required evidence. Okay. Now, what I want y'all to, when you look at that definition, is the key word is a false belief, okay, or a false judgment. Right now, what I want us to do is I want to switch that word, right? I want to switch that word from false to different. OK, and because when you change the word to different, it completely changes the meaning. OK, so what is delusion? A different belief, judgment, or perception, or a different belief or judgment about external reality. OK, because remember now, when we start having different beliefs, we start creating a different reality, because ultimately our external reality is just a reflection of our internal beliefs. Okay, so we can become delusional in the sense as we start to reprogram our beliefs that are in alignment with who we're striving to become, but not necessarily who we are now. Okay, and or the reality that we're striving to create, but not necessarily the reality that we have right now. Okay. Now let's get back to it. When we start having different beliefs, we start to create a different reality. Now that's important because right now, you may have beliefs right now that are holding you back that you're not necessarily even aware of. And these could be beliefs that you were raised on. These can be beliefs that maybe you got from different experiences in your life that were necessary at the time, but no longer necessary now. Okay. And a lot of these beliefs that you have may be subconscious, which means that they're outside of your perception. Like you can't even perceive or pick up on how these beliefs may be affecting you, which is a very, very dangerous place to be, because here you are living life day to day, not knowing and not understanding that you are a culmination of these beliefs that you didn't even necessarily choose for yourself. Okay, so it puts you in a very dangerous place to be, because you're not intentionally creating your identity, right? You've become a system of these programs, a system of these different beliefs that you may have learned over the course of your life. Okay? Now, there's two things that are practical that you could do that will help you to bring these beliefs to the surface. And only when you bring these beliefs to the surface are you then able to actually address them and start to go through the process of reprogramming them. Okay? Now, the two things that you could do to help with this is meditation is one and journaling is the second. Okay? And these are two things that I stand on. I got my journal right over there. These are two things that I really, really stand on the importance of, because when you're meditating, it forces you to detox your subconscious mind. It's a mental detox when you meditate, because what's happening is you're focusing on your breathing, right? And you're giving your mind the opportunity, right? It's ultimately like the best dopamine detox that you could possibly ever have is meditation, honestly. Okay, when it just comes to mental capacity and improving that, right? But when in that process of meditation, now you get to see these random thoughts that pop up that are maybe influencing in your subconscious, or see where your energy is flowing. Because in the state of meditation, when you're sitting there focused on your breathing, now your subconscious mind starts bringing these thoughts that are within that subconscious sphere. Okay? So then it starts to bring up things that you may need to address. And the same thing with journaling, right? If you sit down and just ask yourself what's on your mind and you start to write about it, you'll really start to help yourself in terms of just gaining that clarity and understanding that's ultimately going to help you improve, evolve, and continue to elevate into that best version of yourself. So high return habits for sure is meditation and journaling, y'all. Okay? Now, delusion isn't about choosing identity before evidence. Delusion is about choosing identity before evidence. So, man, like, you gotta become the person that you need to be before you even see the evidence of it, and continue to stay in alignment with that identity and version of yourself long before you see evidence of it. All right. And we can see this in many different examples in life, even if we go back to, like we were just touching on, other successful and great people in their lives. It's like, they always had this belief, this identity about themselves long before there was ever proof of it. Okay. So delusion is about choosing identity before evidence. Okay. Now, this is important because if we go back to the definition of delusion, it talks about a false belief or judgment about external reality held despite incontrovertible evidence. Okay. So delusion is all about flipping that definition on its head, and is about choosing the identity before you even have the evidence. Okay. Because there's two types of mindsets. There's the reactor mindset and the creator mindset. The reactor mindset is I'll believe it when I see it. Right? The creator mindset is I'll see it because I believe it. It's a different level of understanding. Okay? So one thing to be delusional about, y'all, is your goals, right? You have to dream big. You have to be delusional about your goals. Okay, and you want to set them big. And, a key thing with people when they come to goals is they just get so caught up on the how immediately when setting the goal, as it starts to become a barrier for them because they don't know how. Okay, but the key thing is you don't have to know how when you set the goal. Just set the goal. And as long as you continue to focus on setting the goal and just having that inner dialogue, that inner productive dialogue with yourself in terms of, okay, what would be the next step in terms of achieving the goal, and then continuously taking the next step, right? Then you're in the process of achievement, okay? But don't get so caught up on the how, because sometimes that could be very overwhelming, and that can stop people in their tracks from ever continuing to take the necessary actions and steps. Okay? Now, another thing that we need to be delusional about is also our current reality and what it means to us. Okay, you decide what meaning anything happens in your life. You decide the meaning. That's one power that we will always have, is that we can always choose the meaning. Okay? Now, you have to be delusional about your current reality, is because current reality is just a delayed reflection of a past version of yourself. So, being delusional about your current reality is being present while at the same time holding the awareness and holding the slide and the assumption of the desired reality and the emotions along with it. Okay? Because it's not about pretending reality doesn't exist. It's about refusing to let it define you. All right? So, listen, y'all. It takes delusion. It takes a certain level of delusion because the universe is always testing you. The universe is always testing us to see how we respond, right? And how we respond ultimately is code, right? It's code. Our emotional response lets the universe know where we are wired and how we, in our perception on a subconscious level, okay? So having that level of delusion to dream big, but also not get caught up in physical reality, and understand that as long as you continue to live in alignment and congruent with that delusional vision, it's universal law that it must come to pass. Okay? So be delusional, y'all. Be crazy. Okay? Be the crazy, happy person that's always happy, that doesn't let physical reality distract them from living in alignment with source energy. All right, I'll leave y'all on that. Man, if this was helpful for you, man, just go ahead and drop me a like to make sure that to let me know that you saw this and it was valuable to you. But appreciate everybody that taps in. Much love, much peace, much abundance. Talk to y'all soon.